so we'll request. Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out and welcome to our public bond forum. We appreciate you being here so that you can learn about the projects that have been proposed for this bond referendum. We hope that after this evening, you will have a strong understanding of the current facilities needs of our schools and why our Board of Education made the decision to put forth a bond to fund the much-needed projects that have been identified. You will hear from our district architect, Mr. John Grillo, who will describe the projects in detail, as well as learn about the estimated tax impact of an approved bond for homeowners from our district's financial advisor, Mr. Rick Gansey, who is the Executive Vice President and Principal of Capital Markets Advisors, LLC. So, as you can see, the bond was developed over a period of about 18 months through an open and collaborative process which engaged various members of the East Rockaway community as well as the district. The initial input was provided by the district's facilities committee, our Board of Education trustees, district administrators, and the district's architect. These were our committee members. It seemed like a long time ago that this committee started. It was really ran from, I think, February through May of 2018. So this process has been underway for quite a long time, as Mr. Marsh pointed out. The charge of the committee, and through their work, they answered the essential questions. So I'm not going to read it. We've discussed this numerous times, but there was a clear charge that was given to the community group and our administrators and teachers, Board of Education, in order what they needed to accomplish on this committee. And the following essential questions were asked. So, are the district's facilities meeting the needs of our instructional program? Are the district's facilities providing the best learning environment, and what upgrades to the facilities can we pursue to further enhance the security, health, and safety of our students as well as our staff? Presentations, and so you can see there was many facets to the process. There was a building condition study, which is something that's required by New York State, was reviewed. They took extensive walkthroughs through each facility. They reviewed options for existing renovations and upgrades that would enhance security. And then they narrowed down and compiled a list of identified projects with associated costs, which were reviewed extensively over the past year. Presentations and discussions took place at numerous board meetings, as well as at a bond forum, which took place last January, where community reaction and input were provided to the board. In addition, the board sought feedback through comments on our website. So based on the totality of input from the various sources, the board mapped out the final bond plan that is being presented tonight and to the community for a vote on November 14, 2019. While our facilities continue to provide a safe learning space for students and staff, they are desperately in need. They are in need of renovations to maintain the integrity of our facilities and to enhance the various learning spaces, and also to increase the safety of our buildings for our students and staff. As you know, you live here, you know this, our buildings are aging. Center Avenue, you may not know, was built in 1924 and is 95 years old. The high school was built in 1936 and is 83 years old. The district, as the steward of its buildings, has the responsibility to maintain safe and effective learning environments for our students and our community. The East Rockaway community approved a bond in March of 2005. At that time, the bond covered critical work in all three buildings, including our athletic field. There are currently 2 outstanding bonds from 2005 that will be paid off in 2022 and 2023. And you will learn more about this later in the evening from our financial advisor. And although there does remain a cost at this time, the debt will end, and we say that it will roll off. The district's excellent credit rating will have a strong impact on reducing the cost of borrowing. This, along with our facilities needs, is why it makes sense to go out for a bond at this time. And that's a little bit complicated, but we will go through that in detail with our financial advisor, who's here tonight, later in the presentation. A lot of people ask, why can't these funds for these much needed repairs and renovations be put in the annual budget? So school districts issue new bonds in order to fund repairs and improvements to school property. Large building projects such as HVAC systems, new athletic fields, and new science labs and renovations to our classrooms, which you will all see tonight that are planned for our district, are too costly to include in a school district's annual budget. And you will see in detail the costs of these projects. With the tax levy cap, it would be impossible for us to fund those projects on an annual basis, and would take us, we just would not be able to fit it in the budget and stay under the tax levy cap. Through a bond vote, districts can take advantage of New York State building aid while spreading the cost over 15 years. It's like when you take a second mortgage or a home improvement loan, you wouldn't possibly be able to do it out of your salary, and this is a similar concept. As part of a bond project, site work is eligible for building aid when it is linked to capital work being done at the same school, and we'll go into a little bit more detail on that later as well. This amounts to millions of dollars that will be funded by the state and not paid directly by you, the taxpayers. Since the inception of the tax levy cap, as I've said, districts across our state are finding that the only way to accomplish major capital work in their districts is through a bond. More than 40 districts across Long Island have successfully passed bonds in this tax cap environment. It has been almost 15 years since the 2005 bond work that took place, and once again, a number of repairs, renovations, and upgrades are sorely needed. Critical infrastructure work, classroom renovations, upgrades to our athletic facility, and preventative maintenance must be completed in our schools. The well-being of our children and our staff is paramount, and the needs of our school are real and pressing. Before I turn the podium over to Mr. Grillo, I would like to thank Mrs. Jacqueline Sgrio, our Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations, who has really been the backbone of this year-and-a-half-long process. She's provided strong leadership over the last 18 months and has dedicated hours upon hours to all the different spreadsheets, number 1, 2, A, B, C, D, E, and F, that she's created. And if you've been on our website, you know the different iterations and the process that the board has gone through and has spent considerable time reviewing before determining this final scope of work to present to you tonight. I would also like to thank Mr. James Daly, our Director of Facilities, for his expertise, input, considerable efforts, and time as well. I would also like to thank our current and our prior Board of Education for the many, many hours they dedicated throughout this comprehensive process. Thank you as well to our Facilities Committee members for their collaborative efforts, which resulted in the recommendations and the final bond projects that we will present to you tonight. So I would like to turn the microphone over in a moment to our district architect, Mr. John Grillo. Mr. Grillo is a skilled and experienced professional who holds tremendous historical knowledge about East Rockaway school facilities and has worked alongside our Facilities Committee, our administrators, and our Board of Education throughout the bond process. Mr. Grillo's firm, JAG Architects, has worked with our district continuously since 1991. That's pretty incredible. It's great loyalty. So I thank you for that. And it's wonderful because anytime a question comes up or we're wondering about something, Mr. Grillo has the background and institutional knowledge to answer our questions and to guide us in terms of what's best for our community. Mr. Grillo oversaw the district through the recovery of Superstorm Sandy, and his firm has been responsible for all capital projects during the past 28 years, including the 2000 bond and the 2005 bond projects. His firm serves over 30 school districts in Nassau and Suffolk. They work with school districts in planning and executing multi-million-dollar construction bond projects, which include new school buildings, athletic field constructions, additions, renovations, ADA compliance, and a broad range of other educational construction. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Grillo, who's going to walk us through.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to walk you guys through building by building in terms of the final list of projects that the Facilities Committee decided on for this bond referendum. We start off at Rain Avenue. As Lisa said, this building was built in 1990. It's the newest building, so obviously the least amount of work needs to take place at this building. The two projects we're looking at here is really focusing on HVAC and electric. And the first project, the biggest project we're talking about here, is providing heating, ventilating, and cooling to the gym cafeteria space at Rain Avenue School. Right now, the building has a large central system that provides heating and fresh air ventilation. We're going to replace that unit with a new rooftop unit to provide heating, ventilating, and air conditioning. The ductwork will need to be replaced, be properly sized, and properly insulated. The units will sit up on the roof, so we'll need additional steel, and there'll be some modifications to the ceilings as well. And part of this now, right now, Rain and Center, they each have their incoming electric service. It's good for where we are now, it's about 800 amps. We are, as part of this project, we're going to bring up the electric service into the building, going up to 1200 amps at both Rain and at Center. And we're going a little bit on the heavy side because if in the future the district decides to do another means to air condition, whether all the classrooms by some other means than window units, and they want to go with some more of a central air system, we wouldn't have to rip out the 3 or 4 or 5-year-old electric service to do that again. So this will provide enough capacity for the whole building at each school. Second project we're looking at Rain is the unit ventilators, which are right here, the small units. You see them in classrooms, small public assembly spaces. Again, they provide mechanical fresh air ventilation and heat. We're going to replace those units and put in units that provide ventilation, heat, as well as cooling. And there's, I think, 2 of them in the library that will be replaced as part of the project at Rain. Center, which is the oldest building in the district, obviously needs a tremendous amount of work. First and foremost, what we're looking to do, again, is to improve the ventilation system throughout Center Avenue School. When the building was built in 1924, it was built similar to how maybe your house is built. You have steam providing your heating in the building, and then if you want fresh air, you simply open the windows. So if those are familiar with Center Avenue, you have the all-purpose room, the gymnasium. Directly below that, below grade is the gymnasium. And over the years, I've walked in there several times, and you can have that damp, musty smell. There really is no air circulating in the entire basement there or in that gym. So again, what we're going to do here, a little bit more complicated, is to put a rooftop unit on the roof of the all-purpose room, and then run separate ductwork down to feed the all-purpose room, and then as well as in the gymnasium. All of these radiators will be removed, all of the additional steam piping will be removed, and then you can, and then all of what we're also going to do is probably remove a lot of these wall pads, open up that area there, get a lot more circulation into the space. That'll take place in the all-purpose room as well as in the lower gymnasium. Similarly, in the basement, again, we have steam convection, no ventilation below grade. So any of the unit ventilators in the classrooms below those 6 flights, when you walk in at grade, you go down 6 steps. There's the art room, the music room, a couple of small instructional spaces. All of those unit ventilators will be removed, and we'll put in new unit ventilators that will provide heating, ventilating, and again, cooling. Obviously, a building of this age needs a lot of exterior work. So the masonry, which we addressed some of it over the years, as well as in the 2005 bond, we are in need of a lot more masonry work. As you can see, this is a typical, it's called a lintel. And it basically holds up the brick. It looks like the letter L, the brick sits on it. Over time, it begins to sag because the water gets trapped inside the wall. So all of the lintels inside the courtyard, both over the windows and above the existing fresh air louvers, have to be replaced. Years ago, we were able to clean them up, sand them, and then repaint them. They're beyond that now. They really need to be replaced. All of the exterior masonry will be repointed, which means that's the white part or the mortar in between the brick. That will all be repointed. You can see the open joints here and here. All of that will be repointed. The entire building will be waterproofed. And then once all that is done, inside a couple of the stairwells where the moisture really builds up, the plaster walls are starting to bow and buckle and crack. we'll redo all of those plaster walls, especially at the south stairwell center. High school, obviously the biggest building, so that's where the bulk of the money is going to go to. First place is we're going to start is on the second floor of the original building. The two science labs, there's two large multi-use science labs, as well as a large space in between. It's sort of a prep room office area. All three of those spaces are going to be gutted. Bring in new fixtures, new faucets, new ventilation, new casework, new storage, reconfigure the spaces to really bring it up. I mean, I'm going through district to district building STEM labs and high-end research labs, and here we still have casework that it's got to be 70 or 80 years old. It might be even original to the building, I'm not sure. Similarly, in the family consumer science rooms, which is right behind us here, these two rooms, I mean, not trying to be funny, but it looks like it could be in the Smithsonian from however many years ago. Both of these rooms, they're two together. We're going to rip all of the casework out, remove all the finishes, new ventilation, provide kitchen stations, 4 stations or 5 stations, whatever the district needs. Work through all of that as part of the design process. So the picture on the left is a picture of your existing steam heating system. Those are the pipes that provide heat throughout the building. They're all located in the basement. As part of Hurricane Sandy, we were able, through insurance, to remove all the electrical lines that were in the crawl space and all were contaminated up above the ceilings. They would not allow us to address this because this wasn't an immediate cause. This has taken place over 70, 80, 90 years worth of being in close proximity to salt water. And this is what happens when we have to do a repair. Basically, a piece of pipe is tied together to the existing 90-year-old steam lines. So now you have a brand new pipe next to 90-year-old pipe. It's only as good as a piece of pipe next to it. So the plan here would be remove all the steam system in the entire building, abandon it in place, or leave it. Run all new hot water piping, where we could also run hot water piping and chilled water, and then provide mechanical fresh air ventilation to all the spaces. So basically, heating and cooling all of the classrooms in the building, as well as all of the offices. Those will be done with unit ventilators, a large central chiller, and all new hot water systems. Everything, when the bond product, if it is successful and if it is completed, everything in the crawl space will now be out. There'll be no more electric in the crawl space. There'll be no more steam lines in the crawl space. Everything will be above grade and out of harm's way. So my long-winded explanation is basically here. This is probably this is the second largest component in the bond referendum. We'll be renovating the existing art room. There's a lot of art needs in there, storage rooms, unutilized spaces. We'll create a new location for the kiln. Right now the kiln is out in the open, a little bit on the dangerous side, build a small separate contained area for the kiln, and then improve the storage facilities in the art room. So here we have the bathrooms in the technology room. So right now the building has 2 boilers and the steam lines go underneath the ground. I don't know if anybody's seen between the main building and the tech ed building that looks like that raised walkway. That's actually the steam tunnels that brings the steam to the technology building. We've replaced that twice over the years because of the steam piping rotting out. We're going to abandon all that in place, and then part of the renovation to the tech ed building will bring in new rooftop units that will provide heating and ventilating and air conditioning, as well as in the wood shop, what's called air scrubbers. No matter how good your dust collection system is in your wood shop, you're still going to get a lot of wood fragments going on. You put air scrubbers in there to help improve the ventilation. The other thing we're going to do as part of this process, so this is at the front, really looking back into the technology building. This has, and it's very funny because if you look at the original drawings when the building was built, the technology shop, which had wood and auto shop back in the 1930s, only had a boys' room. The bathroom in this wing by the home and careers room only had a girls' room. So what we're going to do here now is a couple things. We're going to open up the back wall directly out to the fields, and we're going to construct 4 new single-stall toilets, unisex toilets that could be used during the school day. The building could also be opened up on weekends if there's a sporting event or some kind of event going on the field. will now have direct access to the bathrooms without having to build a new comfort station or a toilet facility. And it will be able to secure the entire rest of the building without people coming into the building and wandering through the technology rooms. We'll also be renovating, so that's that, and I think is this the other bathroom we have? In this building? Yeah. So then that's the other bathroom. But this is very important because now we're going to get use for toilet facilities during the school day by both male and female, as well as after school and on weekends. So this is the project that we've been talking about for, it's got to be since Hurricane Sandy. So we're going on 7, 8 years now. We're now at the point where the shoreline is on our side of the fence. This is our fence line. I guess in June or July, we spent about $70,000 to temporarily stabilize the northeast corner of the property. Because as the earth is starting to erode, when the building was built, there's a bulkhead all the way across the north end of the property and at the south corner of the property. When the building was first built back in the 30s, that section of bulkhead that's not there, that's 750 feet, it went out about 45 feet into Mill River. And over the years, Mill River has completely changed and has gotten closer and closer. And when we built the bond issue in 2005, the shoreline was still at almost 10 or 12 feet on this side of the fence. After Hurricane Sandy, obviously the erosion accelerated, and now we're at the point where we are at the shoreline. We've been working with GOSER over the years to try to get them to pay for a bulkhead. We've been going back and forth, and I think the board decided that since we've already had to postpone the bond once, and we're just losing time, let's put the funds for the new bulkhead in the bond. If GOSER does come through and they're able to provide the new bulkhead for us, the district simply doesn't borrow that money, and then it can go back to the taxpayers. And then the large athletic project. One of the goals we want to do as part of this project, along by adding the bulkhead to stabilize the shoreline there, is to raise the entire field about 2 feet. Right now, our biggest problem is on a heavy rain, high tide, full moon, there's no place for the water to go. So if we can raise the grade up about 2 feet, we can increase our storage capacity and our drainage capacity for stormwater. So the whole site is going to come up about 2 feet. We're then going to install a new running track around the entire property, new bleachers with a press box, because regardless of if we do the bulkhead or the governor's office does the bulkhead, the existing bleachers and press box have to come down. They're not going to survive the impact of the hammering of the bulkhead, so we're going to put in a bleacher and press box. The field, the synthetic turf field, will be lined in multi-purpose, as you can see, for soccer, football. We'll also inlay for baseball and softball. Now again, because the whole site is up 2 feet, we'll have separate handicap ramp and stairs to come up to 2 feet, as well as a larger ramp for maintenance vehicles. If God forbid we needed an ambulance up there, they'd be able to drive right up onto the field. So the entire site would come around, be raised 2 feet, so anything that's grass would be synthetic turf. And then we would add new stadium lights. 9 light poles to light the fields for night activities. And again, the cost of that entire project is $9.4 million. There's a couple of projects that as we went through the project, really kind of wound up on the cutting room floor. They just didn't make the cut. What bond counsel will allow you to do is include those as sort of in your B list. The funds are available at the end of the project, and you've spent your money and you've built everything you promised the community. If you've had approval to do these B projects, you can use any funds available, if there are funds available, to do these projects. And the projects that the board would like to include would be the floor of the all-purpose room at center. That floor is a vinyl tile floor. I'm sure people walk in and see it all the time. It's actually 3 inches of plywood on top of plywood built up over the years. And below all of that is, of course, asbestos floor tile. So all of that 3 inches would come out, we would build it up, and then we would put a new flooring system down. So that's why that cost seems very high, but it is 3 inches worth of a lot of labor, a lot of removals, and then to remove the asbestos floor below it and the asbestos master. The other project we're talking about is to renovate the nurse's office here at the high school. If funds are available, enlarge the space. Right now it's very compartmentalized. We would open it up to one large space with a handicap bathroom in there. A little bit more room to move inside that space. So the timeline. Timeline is very fluid. What we have is starting November of 2019, if there is a successful capital vote, we would start the design, plans inspect to submit to the state education department, because schools in New York State, they don't submit to the local jurisdiction, they submit up to the state education department. They're required to get building department permits from the Commissioner of Education. Those would be submitted to the state education department, and in the last year, their backlog has been as quick as 2 to 4 weeks and as long as 46 weeks. So it all depends on what other work is going on and who's submitting projects up to the state. Our drop dead date, we promised the community September 1st of 2022. It's about 2.5 years between design, submission to SED, and construction. A lot of the smaller projects will be done in the summer, only in July and August. Obviously, the athletic fields and the changing of the heating and ventilation system of this building is longer than a 9-week project. So the ventilation system in this building, what we would do, the contractors would work nights and weekends to run all the new hot water piping, get all the new equipment in place, and then just in the summer, do the changeover. A lot of work will take place up in the ceilings, out of reach, won't be in anybody harmed away, but it'll allow us to get a lot of work done, so that summer crunch, we just have to do the finishing up on that. And then the field itself is probably going to be a year-long project, so that's something we'll have to talk about in terms of where to move the kids for practices and games for that year while we're working on that project.
Thank you, Mr. Grillo. I think I'll open it up to questions now about any of the projects before we go on, because I know you probably have things that you're thinking about or questions that you want to ask. What Mr. Grillo is going to do, but then we'll move on to the financial report. Dr. Mark?
I'm not going to do like this.
Yeah, come on.
Dr. Mr. Grillo is a former school board member, 13 years in an 18-year period. I'm so pleased that one of the needs is not anything to do with roofing. And in your analysis of the current status of our 3 buildings and roofs, I was wondering if you had a word to share on that.
We replaced Rain's roof in 2007. Centers was over a couple of phases. I think each roof in the building has at least a flat roof, have a minimum of 12 to 14 years left worth of their warranty stuff. And the only roof that hasn't been replaced is the roof over this wing, the 1968 wing, which is slate, which could last another 30 years. You're welcome. What are the schools?
I think you just have to press the button to turn the mic on.
Are there any other schools that have done this conversion that you've been involved in?
I'm doing 2 in Hewlett right now. I've done 2 in North Belmore. I've done, I don't know, 20.
Okay, and how much amperage are you going to increase in this building? Because with the additional air conditioning and heating, it will definitely increase your amperage requirements.
Well, right now you have a lot of these buildings are running on window air conditioning, which are just turned on in the morning and they probably run on the entire week and never shut off. With these new systems, with a digital controlled DDC system that's going to be installed, we can set a timer for when it's to turn on, when it's to turn off, what the temperature is going to be, as opposed to just running over. And if you're cold, you crank up the heat to 90, and if you're hot, you drop the heat down to whatever you want. So there'll be a lot more control. You won't have that runaway heat. A lot of times in steam buildings, especially on a 2nd or 3rd floor, takes like, for example, I would assume at center, teachers are colder up on the top floor, so you crank up the boiler as hot as possible to get the heat to the top floor. By that time, you're sweating everybody out on the lower floor, and then the teachers in the lower levels are opening their windows in the middle of January.
Well, I will say, Jim Daly does a very good job using our air conditioners in this building, and he doesn't waste electricity.
I'm sorry, I missed it. How long does it last?
The warranty on a synthetic turf field is 8, but I haven't really been replacing them with shorter than 11 or 12.
So what would be the obligation each year to say?
Usually what they require is small machines you can buy from either a Grange or a local store to groom the field on your own. And then whoever is a successful bidder, because we have to publicly bid all of this, you would maybe enter into a service agreement with them. They would come 4 or 5 times a year, groom it. If there's any issues that have to be replaced, they would do what's called a G-Max test. They would infill it with additional sand and rubber, that kind of thing. So it's a good idea. Most of my districts, they do have a service contract with one of the turf vendors on Long Island.
And what about to replace it in years or 11 years? Do you have to do another one? How much would that cost?
It's usually, I mean, what they say rule of thumb is 2/3 the replacement cost of the turf, but I haven't seen anything above maybe 1/3. I mean, really what they've been doing is they're removing the rubber, stockpiling it, putting it in bags, and replacing the carpet, putting the new carpet down, reusing the rubber again, and then just supplementing with a little bit more. I just did 4 of them in the town of Worcester Bay, and it works well. I mean, if it's 1/3 the cost, it's a
So
lot.
it's all of the expenses just now.
This would be over and above.
And what about the lighting? How does that not disturb the neighborhood?
The
Lighting.
Well, what we have is Musco is a manufacturer, probably the leading in terms of the marketplace of dark sky. And we have actually, I can send it to you guys. Might have a copy. In fact, you do have a copy of the lighting analysis. Well, you'll see 45 to 50 foot candles on the field, so the kids are completely safe. No one's going to not be able to see a ball. Literally 5 feet behind the light. I mean, if this is your light bulb. The foot candle level is 2 or 3. Which is probably way less than if you turned your phone on.
Because I really got 3 blocks from my house, and I haven't really looked in the room at all.
You won't, it's not like way back when, 15 and 20 years ago, when you had they were like floodlights at the mall parking lot, and you open up and everybody sees it. These things are directed so well that they only focus right on the field, and there's no light pollution anywhere. It's a requirement. You're welcome.
Which unit is more efficient, steam or hot water?
In my opinion, by all means, hot water.
Which one's quicker to come up?
Which one's quicker to come up? Depending on your entire system and depending on your pumps.
Well, steam doesn't require that much pump.
Well, I mean, I would never, and I don't know anybody who's built a new addition or built a new building or anything that's put in steam. There's not a school on Long Island that's either has an addition built or a new building built that's gone with a steam system. I mean, Rain was built in 1990, that was put in with a hot water system.
Yes, it is. But wasn't it more efficient to go with steam because it's quicker? And New York City still uses steam almost predominantly.
Probably because they can't afford to replace all of the hot water and steam systems in all of their buildings. I can't speak for the city schools, but I can tell you from in my opinion, and going through 35 of my school districts, you know, wherever we can, we're removing steam systems at the request of the school district.
And is it of course efficient?
Yes.
Meaning we're going to get a return on this investment?
No, you're not going to get return on investment. You'll use less energy. You'll use less fuel. I mean, you have to look at it as either a BTU or a kilowatt or a widget of energy. You're not going to get, all right, we're going to go to hot water, I'm going to get money back. You're going to look at it and saving on your utility costs. Same thing if you did an energy performance contract, where you replace all the lighting from metal halide to LED or from fluorescent to LED.
Right, but usually there's still a return on investment. And since these things are supposed to last, let's say 20 years, and using 2 watts instead of 5 watts.
Well, remember, on an LED fixture, they say the fixture lasts 20 years, but the drivers, I don't know if anybody's gone to Home Depot and went out and bought all new LED fixtures, it's supposed to last 20 years. The drivers are lasting 3 to 5 years, and they're dying in my home. I'm throwing out an LED fixture that I just bought, it's supposed to last that long. The driver goes before the LED fixture goes.
Yes, my son has T8, T16, and T12s, and they're all not holding up.
No.
But yeah, and the old 40s still work, you know, I hate to say it. But anyway, you know, I'm just trying to get across, is this really financially, you know, advantageous to us? And I'm just wondering, are we spending too much money and our cost return is not going to be, no. And you know, the bond issue is going to cost us for 20 years.
I don't want to speak at 15, right? We're going to do 15-year bond.
Okay, well, and it all depends on the interest rate too.
Absolutely.
It could be equivalent to 20.
Can I just throw in there? I'm an engineer. The steam pipes are shot. They have to be replaced if you want to do anything. Hot water is the way to go. So just agreeing with you.
Thank you.
If you're going
I was nervous for a second.
Thank you, Mr. Grillo. We can entertain more questions when we're finished. I'd just like to say again that the board, as Mr. Grillo mentioned, there were other projects that were considered. Unfortunately, we couldn't satisfy everyone's desires and wants for the things that came up, but I think these are the most needed and responsible projects. Just anecdotally, we speak a lot to parents, and climate control is really very, very important for our community. Many parents and our faculty. There's a lot of data that shows that our students perform better. You know, they're taking some of their most high stakes tests on days when it's brutally hot. A lot of children have asthma and allergies and conditions that affect their ability to breathe well in an overheated environment. Schools, I think my whole career, which is many years, are notoriously overheated, and I think that's what Mr. Grillo was speaking about. And so this really is an important investment for our community, and something that's been spoken about quite a bit, as well as the track. I think a new athletic field and a track are things that I think most of our students, not just our coaches and our students, but our community has been longing for a long time. So I think that the projects were very thoughtful, and a great deal of time was put into selecting which of the projects were most prudent to put forward for a vote. So we'll continue now so that you can hear about the financial impact. I know this is obviously a very important part of the evening. So I would like to introduce Mr. Rick Gansey. He is the Executive Vice President and Principal of Capital Markets Advisors. Mr. Gansey oversees the firm's upstate New York offices and leads the firm's state aid practice. He serves as a lead financial advisor to many of the firm's largest clients, including the cities of Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse, and their respective school modernization programs. Over the course of his career at CMA, Rick has been involved in the issuance of over 1,500 bonds, note, and lease financing with a total par of over $12 billion. He serves as a member of the Board of Governors of the New York State GFOA. He has presented to various professional groups on Capital Projects 101, capital planning with a permanent tax cap, and he is also licensed by the SEC and the MSRB as a municipal advisor. He's also a member of the National Association of Municipal Advisors. And he is here to tell you about how this bond will impact your taxes.
It's a good segue, I guess, to the one gentleman's question over here about the financial impact. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
The financial impact of the project and how it relates to a state building need. So what I'll do is I'll go through just a brief presentation here to talk about sort of how we got here from a financial perspective. I know we just went through the details from the architect's perspective on what the district's looking to build. This was a project that has evolved over several years. I know Jackie and I have been going back and forth with different iterations of the project to make sure that this project, what was developed was things that the district necessarily needed, as well as the most important part was what the district can afford. And we think that's the most important part of the plan here is we created a plan that, you know, we think is affordable to the district taxpayers. And it's one that, you know, we think is properly addressed. So the district's goal would be the district superintendent, the finance staff, the board of education, as well as the professional staff. So the goal at the end of the day was to provide a plan that limits local taxpayer impact. As you may know, the state education department, through education law, requires that every 5 years, every school district in the state produce what's called a building condition survey. So every 5 years, the majority of the districts in Nassau County and throughout the state will look to bring projects to the voters that, you know, comes through a needs assessment of a building condition survey. So the last vote, I believe, that the district had was back in 2015, which would take us into this 5-year cycle of the needs assessment of what the district is required to produce to the state as far as crumbling infrastructure, windows, roofs, boilers, things of that nature that, you know, continue to deteriorate across the state for all school districts. So just a needs assessment that makes sure that, you know, all districts are maintaining the facilities in a sound and efficient manner. So this is certainly a well thought out process that the district has undertaken. The existing debt service reduction we talk about in 21 and 22, and then the debt service so these are projects that the district has outstanding from prior capital projects. So the state aids building aid projects over a 15-year period. So the last payment on this last project, which was the last sizable project of the district, was a vote back in 2005. Those bonds were issued in 7 and 8, which would then take us to this 15-year roll-off of where the building aid and the debt service fall off for the last prior 2005 capital project. So we wanted to make sure that we sized the project accordingly, and then we sized it with the correct timing. And the timing really works out well, as the district has a large project in 05 that is currently rolling off in the debt service and the building aid. We also want to talk about maximizing state building aid. The district's state aid ratio is 48.7%. Essentially what that means is every dollar the district spends of an eligible expense, 48.7 cents is paid for by the state. That ratio is actually on the higher end of other districts within Nassau County. Certainly some other upstate districts are quite a bit higher, but we think that's a pretty good range to be eligible for building aid. And these are dollars that the state funds for projects. So, local taxpayers take advantage of, obviously, of state dollars that are put into school projects. As the superintendent, I think, mentioned earlier, in order to receive building aid on what we call site work, fields, sidewalks, parking lots, things of that nature, you have to tie that to actual work within the building. Boilers, roofs, windows. That would be considered the capital construction project. We call site work would be an incidental expense to the capital project. So a district couldn't just do a field project on its own, parking lot on its own, other outside work. It has to be tied to actually work within the building, which drives the building aid to pay for certain incidental costs of the project. We're also going to talk within the model about the district's use of capital reserve funds. We kind of think about this as, when you get a home mortgage, essentially the down payment, if you will. These are dollars the district has saved over the years through a voter-authorized resolution that the voters approved back in 2014. And then again in 2018, the voters authorized sort of the savings account, if you will, where the district has accumulated $6.2 million in cash over the years to use as a down payment to pay for certain costs of the project in avoiding the actual issuance of bonds. So the district pays cash for certain projects. The state actually aids the district back as if they were borrowed funds. So the capital reserve is essentially a leveraging tool to create a nice project by receiving building aid and not incurring debt service on the project. So that was the 2018 owner authorized capital reserve. There's also potential funding, as Mr. Grillo pointed out, from Living with the Bay. There is potential, while not guaranteed as of today, the district could receive funding from the state for things such as the bulkhead or certain field projects that are dependent upon the bulkhead work being completed due to the storm damage. The sound financial planning with a phased approach. As we saw the last slide, we talked about the timeline. This isn't going to be a $27 million project in one summer. This is going to be a phased approach whereby certain work is going to be done over certain summers. So by the end of the third summer, the full $27 million project should be fully complete. And that plays into our plan as far as the financing goes. When we have the debt falling off in 2023, that phased approach will allow us to limit the taxpayer impact to make sure that we're catching the reduction in the debt service following the 2023 year. Because as you know, once it's approved by the voters, there's a process that has to go through as far as SED approval and projects and timeline to get approval from the state. We also talk about the low interest rate. I think the gentleman over here talked about where interest rates are. We're actually fortunate enough that since November of 2018, interest rates have fallen probably about 1.2 percentage points since November of 18 in the municipal bond market. So we're currently sitting at near historical lows for bond interest rates. So it's certainly a good time, to borrow for funds and to finance a project at low cost of capital. So I'll talk about the taxpayer impact, and we'll talk about two things. We'll talk about the local impact without Living with the Bay, and we'll talk about the local impact should the state not fund the bulkhead and certain ancillary field projects, just to give you a sense of where we are from a financial perspective. So this here, I don't think there's a laser on this, but we talked about this drop off in local share between 22 and 23. You'll see from the red line is where the district's current local share lies. Local share meaning debt service less building aid to be received from the state. So what we're seeing here is that within 22 and 23, there's a significant drop off in debt service, building aid, and local share. Where this becomes a challenge from the finance office standpoint in planning for taxes down the road is that local share from their permanent tax cap that we currently have in place is a capital exclusion for tax cap purposes. So should a district lose that exclusion, it creates issues from a tax cap perspective going forward. So the thought process is, and we kind of well thought out throughout the process, is let's create a plan and size a project accordingly to fill in that drop, such that the district still maintains that capital exclusion that it's had over the years based upon prior capital projects and its local share. So you see in this model here, we have a spike in 22 and 23, and then it flattens out to a slight impact to taxpayers each year going forward. We'll talk about what that means on a dollar basis. The reason why I kind of wanted to show this 22 and 23 is that this is sort of worst case scenario in the event the district borrowed all $27 million on day one and all the work was done in the first summer. We know that's not the case, but we just wanted to kind of show this as worst case scenario. What the plan would be, and you saw in the timeline, is that this will be a phased approach over multiple summers. So if you get approval in 21, you're not going to borrow all the funds until at least 24, where that sort of gap comes in. So this is just sort of a background information on worst case if you borrow it all up front. We know that's not gonna be the case, it's gonna be a phased approach over 3 summers. This one here, again, we talk about the phased approach, but this is the model should the state come forward with $2.6 million for the Living with the Bay. What we're showing here is that there'd be no incremental tax impact versus the current budget year for the district. Should the state kick in the additional money, the district wouldn't have to incur bond interest expense on. So this would be the model should that funding come into play. So what does that mean from a dollars and cents basis? What we used for illustration purposes was an average assessed value of $620. This came from, I think, a March 2019 average assessment from Nassau County. So that's what we use. Just
What's
for
the average assessed tax value?
I think it's 235,000. Talking about full value? Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's something. Let me just get that number real quick.
For
60,000, yeah.
the problem that we're having right now with the assessor's office is they reassess all homes, haven't really probably calculated what the market value. So we're giving the reassessed values, recalculated market values. Because I checked the homes that are for sale in the area, over $600,000, and I see that their assessed value is dropped drastically. But their market value is shown in the national account is like 250,000, which is not their market value. So we're still, because they're still in the middle of reassessing all your homes and recalculating the market value. There isn't really good information on that. If you look at your homes, if you come up, you'll see there are several homes in the area where you may have had an assessed value of $988 last year, and now it's down to $620 this year. So until I get an updated one, which will be in September, kind of not accurate market value. I wouldn't want to think that we would need the average market value of the one store in five basis points.
This percentage from 25 down to 10, so
They totally messed everything up, and they're halfway in the middle. Yeah, they're in the middle. So they give you half the information they have to know what they're gonna have. So it does make it very difficult.
This should be for class 1 taxes, which I think makes up 92% of the total tax base of the district.
90% taxes is residential homes.
Yeah, so we've only kind of prepared this on a residential basis. So we use the 620, which was the number we received from Nassau County. And again, we talk about the 15-year life. The state's going to aid the project over 15 years. We then mirror that aid payback with the term of the bonds. So we would issue potentially 1-year bond anticipation notes during construction, and then convert those to long-term serial bond to match up with the state aid that is received over the 15-year period. So without the Living with the Bay funding, we talk about this blue line. So essentially the cost, the blue line above the black line that goes across would be the additional taxpayer impact, if you will, above and beyond what the taxpayers are paying in the current year for capital expenses. So that equates to this $41 a year on an average assessed value of $620. So depending on where you lie within your assessments, you can certainly do the math to do that. But what we're talking about here is the amount above the black line equates to the $41 a year, each year going forward with that 15-year period. If we have, the district is fortunate enough to receive this funding from the state for the bulkhead and the field project, we're back to this one where there's no blue lines above the black line that goes across. So essentially what we're saying is that there's no additional taxpayer impact above what the taxpayers are paying in the current 1920 year. which happens to be the red line that's exactly at the black line in the 1920s. So again, on the bottom here, we talk about where the source of the 620 comes from. So that's sort of what we would look like on a taxpayer impact, depending on the funding source, and then depending on sort of how the project moves forward by way of phasing. Everything we've seen, the phasing would be a three-summer approach, which plays into the model of reducing taxpayer impact in that bubble years. The final slide, when we talk about interest rates, why it becomes important, for the district to move forward with the project at such a low, favorable interest rate. What we show here is the top blue line, which is what we call the municipal market data, which is the interest rate scale for municipal bonds. The district currently has a AA3 rating by Moody's Investor Service, very strong rating. Back in November of 18, you would see that the interest rates, for a 15-year bond would be, somewhere at the 3.25 range. Fast forward to, last week, September, where we're at, just above 150. So a little less than half of where rates were back in November. We're hopeful that that trend continues. We just want to give you a sense of where the market was as of today, as you look to move forward with this capital project down the road. That's all I have with finances. There's certainly open to any questions that you might have.
One question.
Yes.
What do you mean by when you go from $41 to the, if you don't get this, we have to pay that?
Well, it's
That, yeah.
yeah. So what we're showing here is local share to the taxpayers, right? So you have a state aid coming in to pay for the project.
Yes.
You have money going out the door to pay bondholders.
Right.
If you get $2.6 million from the state as a grant, you're not borrowing that money.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're not incurring interest expense on borrowing the money, but the state is still aiding the project as if you did borrow for that $2.6 million.
So that brings it down.
Exactly, because you're not paying interest expense on the bonds to borrow the money.
Will we get it?
So, so I can update you a little bit. Many of you who were here last January when we talked about this, and we talked a little bit about living with the Bay, and we've tried to update the community. GOSER stands for the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, and they are the agency that is funding and managing the Living with the Bay project. Now, if you remember, this is over 4 years ago that we were approached. This is funded by HUD, so it's a federal grant, and there are many different projects that were offered and accomplished and brought to fruition around the area that are supposed to meet certain goals that were set forth by the Living with the Bay project. You can visit their website. I won't go into those. Part of our project that we were offered, the scope of the project was huge when we were first offered it 4 years ago. It actually even included the cost of a turf field and many other enhancements to our parking lots, drainage, raising the field, the bulkhead. Many of those things did not come to fruition. As we moved forward planning with Living with the Bay, the scope got smaller and smaller. It also included, and was a required component of the project, was a greenway, which would be a walkway that was going to be kind of built above, cantilevered above the bulkhead. And when we got a lot of community input last year, there was a strong objection to that. And 4 years changes a lot. And 4 years ago, it sounded like a really lovely thing to have, but with parkland and all of the heightened security that we focused on, the community told us, and we agreed, that opening our property up to people, even if they're from the community during the school day, and even when our athletic teams are practicing, or when we're having games on the weekend, although the fields are open, maybe not such a great idea to have that. And there was also a maintenance cost that the district would have to incur. They were never clear about when that greenway would be available, when we were required to provide access to it. So there were many questions. And we heard the community loud and clear that that was something that you didn't want. There was concern about the egress and the access to that greenway, when it would be open. and how it would actually occur. So we went back with the courage of the board and the commitment and had many conversations with the Living with the Bay team from the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery and the engineering firm, Tetra Tech, that had been awarded the contract to design this project. And we've been going back and forth, but we told them that we were going to pull out of the project if we had to have the greenway, because we felt that it was not in the best interest of the community. So they went back to the drawing board and they came back to us and said that they would be willing to fund the bulkhead at an approximate cost of $1.8 million. And then the last meeting we had with them, they actually came back and offered us not only the bulkhead without the greenway, but also a full-service generator that would power the entire high school building in the event of emergency. Also, they offered to raise the fields and provide a drainage system. So between the bulkhead, excuse me?
Raised field.
Yes, so the raising of the field and the drainage system, as well as the bulkhead, are projects that, as Mr. Grillo explained, are currently included in the bond. However, if they do come through, and we are a little more, I'm a little more confident, we are all a little skeptical because it's been really over 4 years that we've been working with them, but we are hopeful, let's put it that way, that they will now come through with that money and that project would begin in June of 2021. And if that happens, then the cost of this bond, we would just not borrow that amount of money. But we feel, as you could see from the pictures, that the bulkhead is a critical component, that we have to have the bulkhead. We cannot redo the fields, and we have to just even preserve our fields, and without the bulkhead, the erosion is going to continue to deteriorate our real estate and our property. So we can't wait any longer. It's becoming critical, as you can see. The bleachers look like they're, if you're coming to homecoming on Saturday, please take a walk back there. You'll see, looks like the bleachers are going to fall into the river. And it's critical, and it's important to our community. So we are hopeful, I'm hopeful at this point, that they will come through. We contact them pretty much weekly, and we're waiting to hear back from them about how they will progress with this project, which would of course be advantageous to the community. The board, you know, in their steadfast approach to this had pressured Living with the Bay teams so that we would still be able to get the bulkhead without having to provide the greenway, which would be a lovely component to have, but something that the community really felt was not in everyone's best interest. So that's where we stand in that regard, and we will provide you with updates as soon as they become available to us. We had hoped that they would be firmer so that we could actually have removed it from the bond, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So we feel it's really important to present these two scenarios to you so you understand that even though it's included, we may not have to borrow that money. And you can see the impact to the taxpayer and the average homeowner would be tax neutral. And that's a really great thing. If they don't come through, it would be a small increase relative to $41 for the average homeowner. We will keep you posted at every meeting and, you know, on our website when we know more. But that's really all we know now. And so I applaud the board for all the hard work that they did in working with the Living with the Bay team and really making the decision to go forward with this. Yes.
So if by some chance we get the Living with the Bay money and we save on the amount we need to bond for this project, are we going to go forward with the contingency projects that are in there, having approved full amount of the bond? No.
My understanding is that we would have to complete all of the other projects that were included in the bond, and then we would be able to fund the contingency projects.
So
it's
answer that is on both, or you just go ahead and do it? Go ahead. So if Living with the Bay,
Ms. Freer, why don't you come up?
yeah, sure. You can't hear me? So just to clarify, so if Living with the Bay covered $2.6 million with the field, that we would borrow $2.6 million less. So the overall project would drop by that amount. After we did all of the other projects, if money was left over, then we would do the contingency project. We would not use part of that 2.6 towards the contingency project. I just want you to understand that, because that would be great, but we are committed to keeping the project as low as possible. So whatever the Living with the Bay covers will reduce our overall borrowing. And then if there's leftover money, then we will go ahead with the contingency projects.
I just had a quick question. The timeline, so when would, hopefully, all of the projects, not the contingency ones, the original projects, what year would that be finished?
I believe we had said on the timeline September 1st, 2022.
Okay, and so the contingency projects, like the floor at the Center Avenue cafeteria, purpose group, is that going to hold up well for another few years?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we put solar panels in there? You
Mr.
know,
Mullins,
we pay
we talked about solar
200,000 in
panels.
electric. We pay 200,000 in electric,
We do.
and we can actually get it back, and that would be a return
Yes.
on equity.
I agree. Solar panels are something
We can
that
put a flooring too.
we would consider that with an energy performance contract, which is a whole different topic. Energy performance contracts, just so you know, any costs that you lay out for the upgrades have to be supported by savings, and they're guaranteed. So if we were to do an energy performance contract, the savings in the lighting would pay for the solar panels. So that is something we will think about in the future. Right now, we have to focus on the
Does
bond.
John Grillo do that? You do that?
John Miller would in fact do that.
Oh, I'm just asking, you
Yes, he
know?
would, yes. We're just doing it in the right order. Yes.
If I'm understanding this correctly, that the existing bond is expiring, we're getting the new one, and if the Living with the Bay people come forward with their cash, we don't see a tax increase.
For the average homeowner.
Correct,
That's
correct.
Like,
Tax neutral.
how did that happen? I was at a meeting and it seemed like we were getting an increase.
We changed quite a few of the projects.
Yes, I know that the second.
Yes, and there are some projects in the projects that we reduced from projects that we weren't going to be able to get paid on. So we really took a really close look at the projects, and we made sure we selected the ones that were the best for the district, and we had to keep in mind the financial impact. So
And I asked you, of course, like, so 92% of all the school budget comes from residential property taxes? I've always wondered this.
yeah, 92% of the taxes collected in East Rockaway are from the residential
Is that
households.
standard in other districts or?
No.
Okay.
It varies by district, but so certain bedroom communities have very high percentage of taxes that come
So
from
does the
residents.
commercial, those commercial properties see, do they pay into this? Does their tax rate go up with this
Yes,
as well?
all tax rates will go up.
This could be a lot of small ones.
They vary depending on the class. The increase is slightly different. This is based on the class
Residential, class one residential, because that's where the bulk of our taxes are collected.
Yeah. I got it.
So I'm going to invite Mr. Gamache back up and our Board of Education to speak a little bit. You will be seeing a lot more of this. Our kids, your choice, their future. That's our tagline, our logo. You'll be seeing a lot about that. You will be receiving a lot of materials. You'll be receiving newsletter. We'll be publicizing our bond. We'll have a lot of information on our website. You'll receive things at home. And we want you to know that we're here to answer all of your questions. Comments we want to hear. We want to explain this so that you feel confident on November 14th when you vote, how you decide to vote. We hope you will support this. I think we've made a strong case for why this is important for our schools and our community. And I think you've heard and seen how prudent our Board of Education has been and how hard they've worked to make the decision that we've presented to you tonight. So I will turn it back over to Mr. Gamache.
So thank you all for coming tonight, and there are going to be other opportunities when we begin the meeting with the agenda to ask questions at that time. You can also ask